true. Not one black person alive today was enslaved in America. That is true. Black people are wanting free stuff. Okay, I don't know. I want free stuff, so I guess white people want free stuff too.
Why you didn't ask Donald Trump for our reparations, Queen?
Why y'all ain't asked Joe Biden and Kamala for reparations?
Oh my God.
I mean, Joe Biden and Kamala was in office for 4 years. They ran on a whole, like Donald Trump ain't never promised reparations. But
do you support reparations for American descendants of slaves?
How can you possibly justify taking money through force taxation from someone today who was never a slaver, whose families were never slavers, who has never been involved in slavery in any way, and giving it to someone today who was never a slave?
Hello good people, welcome to African Commentary, whereby we learn and grow every day. So if you're new here, kindly consider subscribing, like and share the videos. I'd really appreciate. So in today's video, I want us to talk about something which is kind of a debate. People still argue about it. Some agree, some disagree, but I'm here to bring you the topic. It's about reparations. Do black people deserve, let me say black Americans, do black Americans deserve reparations from the US government, or is it something that they should just forget about it? Some argue that it was their ancestors, it is not them, so they do not deserve it. But what are your thoughts? You as my audience, I'd love to know, do black people deserve reparations, or it is something that they should just forget in their mind? Let me know in the comment section down below. I hope you enjoy.
Why you didn't ask Donald Trump for our reparations, Queen?
why y'all ain't asked Joe Biden and Kamala for reparations?
Oh my God.
I mean, Joe Biden and Kamala was in office for 4 years. They ran on a whole, like Donald Trump ain't never promised reparations. But Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, that's what I be saying about the politics shit, right? Like, I'm for reparations, whoever want to pass them. I don't think we ever gonna get them. Right? They feel like our reparations is abortion. That's why Kamala ran a whole campaign and did a HBCU tour on reproductive rights, because they feel like our reparations is abortion. Like, that's why we can't get reparations, because we keep asking them for a right to kill the kids that we can't take care of. So what I'm gonna give you money for? You gonna go abort it anyway. You don't need no money.
That's an interesting question. What do you mean by that? If I
well, like, there are like white people that have like been disenfranchised like recently, like
recently is the key. Recently is the key.
The country like deindustrialized, right? So like a lot of people in like manufacturing jobs and stuff, like
right.
Were affected.
But so to your question, I think you have to understand what the word reparations means first. So reparations, you are repairing something that you have broken. You are paying for something that you were supposed to pay for. I'm not saying that there aren't people living in America today who are suffering and are going through pain and strife because of what's happening when it comes to machines taking jobs, factories becoming industrialized, etc. But reparations is a specific conversation about a specific time in America, and that is black people were slaves. You know what I mean? I've even heard people say like, oh, but there were some of the Irish who were indentured. Like, yeah, slavery. Look at the numbers, look at the time, look at the level of work. You could not work toward your freedom. For most black people in America, this was a time when you lived and died as a slave. And so that's what reparations is about. And so I hear what you're saying, but I think that's a completely separate conversation that needs to be had about the now. Because if you are not careful, what you then do is you combine everybody's suffering into the same bowl, and you make it seem like all injustices have the same weighting, and they don't. Just like crimes. You know, theft isn't the same as murder. We don't try them the same way. And as much as there is a white person who's suffering today, I feel for anybody who's suffering, because I know what it's like to be poor. I know what it's like to suffer. I didn't come from a wealthy family. We struggled when I was growing up. But I also understand that there are levels of that suffering. You know, and so sometimes white people, it does block a white person, because you go white privilege, and the person goes, I'm poor and I'm white. Where's the privilege? You know, white people are like, I wish I could activate my white privilege. I wish I could do it right now. White privilege, give me something. I get that. I get that. Trust me, I get it. It is hard to accept that you have benefits because of the color of your skin if you cannot see the benefits that you have. But the thing I try to explain to a person is, think of it more like golf. Don't think of it as privilege, then think of it like a handicap. Right? In golf, they acknowledge that you are in a position where you need so many advantages to be competitive in the game. right? So what they say is you have a handicap of 15, so that means like you're going to be hitting from this tee and you get more chances to get the ball in because we understand the position you're in. And if you're a black person in America, from slavery, from day one, the number of injustices that have held black people back in America amount to an insurmountable, like you look at black people's freedom, you look at black people's land, just land alone. The amount of wealth you can acquire over time if you own land is exponential, because you have the land, you have the fact that you can borrow based on the land, you have the fact that you can use the money that you have borrowed to grow more wealth, you can use it to grow your family's wealth. Just taking that away from black people alone is crippling them. And so you combine that with slavery, and then you look at Jim Crow laws. You didn't let black people in America live in the areas that they wanted to live in. They couldn't get loans from the banks that they wanted to get loans from. And then on top of that, when they started getting the loans from American banks were found to be giving them higher interest rates when in fact they were the same risk as many of the other races that they were giving loans to. So when you combine all of those things, I think it's safe to say that black Americans have a conversation that they need to be having with the United States. Doesn't involve me, doesn't involve white people, it's like, yo, American government, meet the black people. That's it.
Reparations. The definition is the making of amends for a wrong one has done by paying money to or otherwise helping those who have been wronged. And recently in papers released by researchers and economists Jonathan Welburn and Catherine Edwards, they found white Americans make 73% more than black Americans, are 2 times more likely to own their own home, hold 10 times more wealth, and are 28 times more likely to become millionaires. Welburn and Edwards' research was to focus on the racial wealth gap in America, and those are some of the numbers that they found. However, the solution they found in the research to address this massive wealth gap between black people and white people was a historic intervention with targeted wealth allocation policies known as reparations. They also concluded that the gap could be closed through broader policies that reduce overall wealth inequality in America. If it were up to you to close the racial wealth gap, what's the first policy you would implement or get rid of?
Do you support reparations for American descendants of slaves?
How can you possibly justify taking money through force taxation from someone today who was never a slaver, whose families were never slavers, who has never been involved in slavery in any way, and giving it to someone today who was never a slave, who has never been a slave, whose parents weren't slaves, whose grandparents weren't slaves? None of that is to diminish the horror of slavery, but to say that reparations is a nutso solution.
Did America benefit from slavery?
I didn't.
But did America's history benefit from slavery?
I mean, no.
All right, so I'm going to ask this very, very, very directly. It's a very way of wording this. Did your parents receive anything from the New Deal, and specifically Social Security?
Perhaps not yet. They probably will.
So
perhaps
you don't
Social Security.
Yeah, American descendants of slaves were excluded from Social Security as a means of public policy. So when you look at the position that American descendants of slaves are in, that's generational poverty. So you're going to have to be very explicit about the reason why you're doing this thing. We have to recognize that the assets were taken from American descendants of slaves, and it's the federal government's job to redress.
Hundreds of years ago, I would have supported it at the time.
At the time, we're talking about the 80s, my friend.
We're talking about slavery.
We're talking about as recent as no. Let's not do that. If we stay on slavery, we're going to be stuck there forever. It's slavery that led to Jim Crow, that led to redlining, that led to the war on poverty, that led to the war on drugs, that led to the situations that even your partner cited.
Yeah, and
that's the government's job.
But you want to respond to that today by discriminating again on the basis of race,
No. It's
reinforcing the divides.
It's
again, instead of, I mean, we can't go back and change the past. We have to move forward without reinforcing divides, without discriminating on the basis of race, without taking from one group to give to another. We have to move forward for equality for all, not try to look backward and do all that.
President Trump, why should people who never owned slaves pay reparations to people who never were slaves to go back to their homelands? 1998, Taisha Miller was found unconscious in her car in Riverside, California. Police fired 12 times, killing her. No officers were charged. She was unarmed. 1998, Donta Dawson was shot and killed by Philadelphia police during during a traffic stop. Charges were dismissed. He was unarmed. 1999, Amadou Diallo was shot 41 times by NYPD officers while reaching for his wallet. All officers were acquitted. He was unarmed. 2003, Usman Zongo was shot 4 times by an NYPD officer. The officer was criminally convicted of negligent homicide. No jail time was received. He was unarmed. 2004, Timothy Stanberry Jr. was shot and killed by an NYPD officer in Brooklyn. The shooting was deemed unjustified. The officer was not indicted. He was unarmed. 2006, Sean Bell was shot at 50 times by NYPD officers the morning of his wedding. All officers were acquitted. He was unarmed. 2012, Rakia Boyd was shot in the head by an off-duty Chicago police detective who fired into a group in an alley. The officer was acquitted on all charges. She was unarmed. 2013, Jonathan Farrell was seeking help after a car crash when police shot him 9 times. The officer was charged but acquitted. He was unarmed. 2014, Michael Brown was shot and killed by a police officer in Ferguson, Missouri. Officer was not indicted. He was unarmed. 2014, Tamir Rice, a 12-year-old boy, was shot within seconds by Cleveland police while playing with a toy gun. No officers were indicted. He was unarmed. 2014, Eric Gardner is choked to death by an NYPD officer while saying, "I can't breathe." No officer is indicted. He was unarmed. 2015, Sandra Bland is found dead with multiple injuries in her Texas jail cell after a traffic stop. Her death's ruled a suicide. She was unarmed. 2015, Freddie Gray died from spinal injuries while in Baltimore police custody. All officers were acquitted or had charges dropped. He was unarmed. 2016, Alton Sterling was pinned and shot multiple times by Baton Rouge police. No officers charged. He was unarmed. 2018, Stephon Clark was holding a cell phone in his grandmother's backyard. Officers fired 20 rounds. No charges filed. He was unarmed. 2020, Breonna Taylor was shot during a botched no-knock raid in her apartment. No officers charged for her death. She was unarmed. 2021, Dante Wright was shot by an officer who claimed she mistook her gun for a taser. She received 2 years for manslaughter. He was unarmed. 2022, Patrick Leoya was shot in the back of the head by a Michigan officer during a traffic stop. Case ended in a mistrial. He was unarmed. 2022, Jalen Walker was shot more than 60 times by Akron police after fleeing on foot, unarmed. 2023, Roger Forston, a U.S. Air Force airman, shot in his apartment by a Florida deputy. He's unarmed. 2023, Tyree Nichols was beaten to death by Memphis police officers during a traffic stop. Officers are acquitted. He was unarmed. 2024, Sonia Massey was shot by an Illinois deputy after calling 911 for help. The deputy has not been convicted. She was unarmed. President Trump, the blood has not been forgotten. The law of God, the righteous judge, is clear. You shall not pollute the land where you are, for if blood defiles the land cannot be cleansed of the blood that is shed there, but by the blood of him that shed it. I call heaven and earth to record this day, the close of this 3-day testimony. If no one will stand in the gap as a witness for your nation, I ask God to let the judgment and the sentence go forth with haste in the name of Yeshua. Get in touch with us at Rep 2025.
True. Not one black person alive today was enslaved in America. That is true. Black people are wanting free stuff. Okay, I don't know. I want free stuff, so I guess white people want free stuff too. Reparations isn't about someone who had been enslaved and now is not enslaved. We had a chance to do that, and we blew it back in the 1880s and 90s. So 40 acres and a mule, for some it was more, for some it was less. 40 acres and a mule is what was promised to those working on plantations. That never happened. Then sharecropping. Then all the Jim Crow. All of those things prevented Black Americans from establishing any kind of generational wealth up and until the Civil Rights Act. Now, we can argue for a really long time that the Civil Rights Act didn't clear everything up. It didn't. But at least it was now illegal to discriminate. So I want you to think about if your family and ancestors had to start at 1964, where you and your family would be today. How would how would you have paid for college? Would your family have been able to help you with that? Where would you have lived? Reparations is about making up for what wasn't given then, which could have propelled that community into wealth today. We are finally seeing Black Americans with multi-generational wealth starting to emerge, and it's only going to keep on going, and that's great. But what reparations does is it makes up for the fact that you had all these enslaved Americans, and then, okay, you're free, with nothing. Starting from scratch in a system where they weren't even counted as a full human being, where they were limited in what jobs they could have. They didn't have access to Social Security. Now we have Civil Rights Act 1964. Everyone has equal rights. So imagine if that's where your ancestors were starting. That's why reparations are important. And that's why I think we're remiss now for not taking a serious look at reparations and how we're going to do that. I know people get all hung up on, how do you prove that your ancestors were enslaved? Okay, how about we give low interest mortgages, interest-free mortgages, free college, and maybe that's the free stuff you're talking about, but that will only better our community. So what's the problem? I don't get what the problem is. So educate me.
First of all, let's get this definition of what is reparation. Reparations are actions taken to repair, compensate, or make amends for harm that was done to a group of people. They are not charity. They are a response to an injustice that caused real, measurable damage. In this context today, who am I talking about? I am talking about Black Americans. And why do they deserve reparations? We all know about history, about their ancestors who underwent slavery, who underwent segregation and all those kind of things, oppression, this systemic discrimination. So what are reparations for? Reparations are just actions to at least acknowledge that, you know what, Black people, you underwent so much, and we acknowledge that it was us, the US government, that made you undergo that. We legally supported slavery to you Black people, and so this is a chance for us to ask for forgiveness. Take this as a token of forgiveness. You get? That is my view, guys. I feel like Black Americans do deserve reparations. This should not even be a debate, guys. It's something that was to be done long time ago. I don't know why the US government is still taking long, or they're still debating about it, because they say that it was not you guys, you modern day Black Americans, it was your ancestors, and they're nowhere to be found. You know, you profit off from our state or our nation, so what do you need reparations for? But if I would ask Black Americans, are you guys really okay? Don't you want reparations? Don't you feel the trauma of what happened? Don't you feel the injustices that happened to you guys? Don't you feel the systemic discrimination that you undergo? Do you feel it's okay for the US government to just brush it off like that? Forget about it. Black Americans, you forgive them and life moves on. For me, that's a no. It's actually a very big no. The US government needs to give Black people, Black Americans, reparations. They should make at least their lives easier in order for them to forgive them, in order for them to forget what they did to them, what they did to their ancestors. Reparations can take any form. It can be direct payments, land or property, housing or education support, business and economic programs, public apology or official recognition, policy changes. Is this much to ask from the US government? Is it so hard to support Black people in these ways? Can you just even make land free for them? Can you make housing free for them? Can you support them education wise? Can you provide programs that help black people, you see. It doesn't have to be something much, but at least the recognition that, you know what, black people, you suffered under our hands. You have suffered a lot because of us, and it's now time for us to give you this as a token of appreciation. Like, we appreciate your ancestors for fighting for you guys, and now we are asking for forgiveness from you. Please forgive us by taking this. You see. Is that too much to ask? The US government, I'm talking to you, is it too much to ask? Black Americans deserve reparations. This is not even about charity, you see. It's about what these people have undergone: segregation, land theft, slavery, oppression, systemic discrimination, you see. Even right now, if you look at the wealth gap between white people and black people, there is a huge gap. All this can be fixed through reparations. At least let the US government make some policy changes whereby it favors black people. It makes their lives a bit easier. They didn't undergo all that for nothing. The US would not be what it is right now if it were not for the efforts of black Americans. This country, US, broke black communities. It broke black people. And the only way to fix this is through reparations. At least acknowledge that, you know what, we made your lives hard and we are here to fix everything. It is about the harm that they brought to black people. People were just living life, and they came in, broke everything. They separated families. They broke down houses with fire. Imagine all that, the trauma they caused on these children. Families had to be separated and live separately. Imagine the effect on the children. Have they ever taken time to think about the effect of what they did to black people? Killing black people like they're animals is nothing to them. Nobody will question them about those killings. But if it was a white person who was killed, that is a case that had to be taken to the court. But for black people, it is just like normal. Police every day, they grab black people, hold them in chains, even without any reason. They can't even tell them, what have you done? They can't explain what this black person has done, but just because someone is black and he or she is in the US, that's a reason enough for you to be jailed with no apparent reason, forgetting that this same person has a family back at home. This same person has people who are looking up to him or her. Maybe he or she is a breadwinner. Maybe he or she runs a business that many people depend on it. Do they care? No. What they care about is that their own people, white people, are okay. They live comfortably. They afford everything they need. But for black people, it is upon ourselves to fight for us. Even if we leave slavery, after slavery ended, the government still came up with new systems that continued the oppression of black people, such as Jim Crow laws, such as land seizures. You see, they just made black people's lives so hard that it was so hard for black people to survive, but that was not enough for them. So what black people are asking from the US government right now, we just need reparations. At least acknowledge that you damaged that community, the black community. Acknowledge that you broke black community, you broke them so bad that even right now we are trying to rise, but still the system is trying to oppress us, black people. They should not even think twice about reparations if indeed they really want the US to continue growing, because black people have offered a huge part. They have made a huge part of the economy. They pay taxes. They work really hard, especially black people I can talk about immigrants who come to the US. They really work hard to ensure that everything is running okay. But do the US But do the US government care about this? I don't think so. Even if you look today, the average white family has wealth 10 times of an average black family, because the system created this gap, wealth gap, whereby it was so hard for black people. They introduced systems that were promoting the lives of white people, that was making easier for white people to make wealth, to create wealth. But for black people, they were still being oppressed down there, just to keep them down, because they know if black people rise, they will overtake us, they will outshine us. So let's keep on oppressing them. Let's keep introducing these new systems that ensure they are denied their rights to everything that they need. You get. So just to conclude on this, we need reparations. Black Americans deserve reparations. Reparations mean that they acknowledge the harm they brought to black people. They acknowledge the oppression, that they are still oppressing black people. Reparations mean that they do care about black lives. You get? So the US government, if they were able to offer reparations to other groups of people, why not black people? Why, when it comes to black people, there is always a game? It is just a game, a mind game. But for other communities, it's so easy for them to be reparated. But why is it hard for black people? When will these people see black people as equal human beings? When will they see the importance of black people in this community? In the US government really need to think about this. They really need to think about black people. They really need to think about the generations to come. They need to think about the future of the US, because if they don't offer reparations to black people who have offered continued support of the nation, to ensure the nation is still growing, to ensure that things are running, it's going to be hard for the US government to survive, because black people are living, actually they're living that country for them white people, but it will be late when they realize that they need black people more than ever before. You know what you think about this video? For me, I really think that black people deserve reparations. It shouldn't even be a matter of debating about it. It's something that needed to be done way before, that black people would right now be enjoying the reparations. If it's housing programs, if it's education programs, like, something needs to be done to at least acknowledge, because if you wrong someone, no matter how long it will take, you will always feel that guilt in you. You will feel that I really need to ask this person for forgiveness. I really need to do this thing for this person to forgive me. But why is it that the US is just okay living with the guilt? The guilt that they caused harm to black people. So let me know your thoughts about this video. Do black people really need reparations? So you think that it was time for their ancestors, they did it, they offered the labor, and then they're nowhere to be seen, so modern day black Americans don't need reparations? Modern day black Americans are the product of their ancestors, and their ancestors should be happy right now if reparations were given to their grandchildren, their great-grandchildren, and generations to come. It would make them so happy that their effort didn't just go like that. Their suffering didn't just go like that. It was acknowledged and something was done about it. So with that said, guys, thank you for watching up to this, and don't forget to subscribe, like, and share the video. I really appreciate it. Let's meet in the next one. Bye, guys.